It's another day, left jab, right jab, this is MMA. Mixed martial arts, quick body parts, undefeated when I pick 'em. Who the champ, who the victim, looking in my crystal ball, I predict the winner. Never stop fighting, if you lose, keep your chin up. Know how the game go, I'm a smart fella. Welcome to the show, this the MMA fortune teller.
The MMA fortune teller.
The teller.
What's up, you guys? UFC 262. We got the crowd back in attendance for a big pay-per-view event. Of course, in the main event, we get the lightweight title on the line. Charles Oliveira taking on Michael Chandler. A very fitting championship bout. Although it does have a little bit of an asterisk next to it, being that Dustin Poirier, in a lot of people's minds, is the best lightweight in the world right now, or at least the best active lightweight in the UFC, or active lightweight in the world, being that Khabib has retired. But this is a great match nevertheless, and I think that all three of those fighters could be interchangeable as far as fighting for the title, in my opinion. So I'm very happy to see this fight take place. It's a good one, and we'll pull up the card here. And, we got Tony Ferguson back in action, taking on Beneil Dariush. That's a good fight. And, this card is a little top-heavy, in my opinion. We had some jokes about this past weekend's card, but really, overall, top to bottom, which we will break it down here in a minute, but Vegas 26, that card was actually maybe a little bit deeper than some joked about. Being me, I did joke about it a little bit. This card right here is a little bit more top-heavy, in my opinion, but has those big fights to look forward to. So I'm excited to break down this card here. We'll get to that in a minute. Other than that, like I said, we're going to recap last weekend's card. But I'm going to be doing a new thing here, and I want to get your guys' opinion on it. So, if you could, comment below after you guys listen to this video. As I told you guys last week, I'm starting this little new thing where I will break down some recent MMA news, of the week going into each of these cards, just some topics that's being discussed, and just want to go over some things like that. And I think I'm going to do it at the beginning of each breakdown video, and I'll have timestamps here, so if you guys don't want to listen to that, you could skip right to the fighter predictions. You can scroll right to each fight. I'll have those timestamps, and I'll make sure I get to those timestamps. I'll make sure I have them as soon as the video's put out. I'll do my best to get those to you. Sometimes, it takes me a day or whatnot. I'll try to get them to you guys ASAP. So do comment below. Tell me what you guys think, because there's a lot of exciting MMA news and exciting stuff going on in the MMA world, the jiu-jitsu world, and there's big topics that need to be talked about. So I just want to, shed some light on those things, and that's what I'll be doing here. But like I said, if you guys don't want to listen to that, just scroll right ahead and click to the first fight of the night. First fight of this event, go to that timestamp, and you can get your fighter predictions there. All right, so that'll be the new thing. And comment below, let me know what you guys think about that. So in recent MMA news, we got actually some interesting topics going on for sure. Dan Hardy asks for his release from the UFC and is now eyeing a stint over with Rizin and One, which is they are the biggest MMA promotions over there in the Asian side of the world, and kind of interesting that he chose to potentially go over to Rizin and One. I thought maybe we would see him try to do something with Bellator. I mean, I guess he is a little bit closer to that side of the world, but I was thinking maybe he would eye a potential stint with Bellator, being that Bellator has really been putting things together, in my opinion. Bellator is catching a groove here, and I thought he would be a pretty good addition to the Bellator scene. But that looks like that's not the case. Either way, I was always a big Dan Hardy fan. It's kind of interesting to see the way things all, unraveled with his UFC career. Not just his fighting career, but, even as a commentator and an analyst, excuse me. And, it's been interesting to see, there was some issues with him. Now it seems like they're not really on good terms. Good luck to Dan Hardy and with whatever, is forthcoming in his career. We'll see what happens. Other than that, how about this? The Diego Sanchez situation with his coach, what's his name? Fabia. Forgot his name. I shouldn't even know his name. I don't even want to know that guy's name. Was it Justin Fabia? That the guy is an absolute weirdo. If you guys haven't seen this video yet, man, there's this video of Diego Sanchez hanging from a rope upside down, and Fabia's kicking him and elbowing him, doing all this this weird type of stuff. It almost seems like some femdom type stuff. In all seriousness, you have to wonder if there's some type of relationship going on there. In fact, I think there seems to be some type of weird relationship going on. Poor Diego Sanchez. You hear from a lot of the pros that know him, and they say this is the worst thing that could have happened to a guy like Diego. I guess, inferring that, Diego is a little vulnerable as far as his mental capacity right now, and he's taking a lot of damage. I don't know where he is at mentally, but this guy Fabia seems to be one of those predator type of guys that's taking advantage of him, and it's a damn shame. Diego Sanchez should have been fighting Cerrone, which will take me to my next topic, man. Cerrone loses that last fight. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a second, but it looks like Cerrone's going to have one last fight. I think that's some pretty big news as well. Cerrone, a legend in the game, looks like he will be having one more fight. Speaking of the video, there's Fabio hitting Diego with a nice little head kick. Although he doesn't even have to extend the leg that high because, Diego's head's kind of low there. But, getting it in. Really, really cringeworthy if you ask me. How about Fabricio Verdum? His loss has been overturned to a no contest. If you guys haven't seen the video, there was definitely a slight tap there in his fight over in PFL. Although, potentially he should have got the sub right there. He did still get smashed up after that, which he shouldn't have let happen. But the fight was overturned. What else do we got over here? MVP. If you guys saw the Bellator 258 card, Michael Venom Page hit a nasty head kick, nose kick, broke the nose of Derek Anderson. It was quite nasty. Derek Anderson bobbed his head right into it. And I got a couple more things to talk about. What else we got? Chimaev will be coming back. It looks like he has a beef, if you want to call it that, with not Jeff Neal, with Neil Magny. Speaking of Jeff Neal, they just fought. But, Neil Magny, this is a guy that he's wanted to fight for a while. Neil Magny just had a big victory, and looks like that's the fight that Chimaev wants. I think that's a very fitting fight. I would like to see that fight. And other than that, Chimaev goes from that potential retirement to all of a sudden now he's talking about fighting a ridiculous amounts of times to cap the year off. So you got to be excited for that if you're a Chimaev fan. I am, and I want to see that. So I'm quite happy about that. And the last thing we'll talk about, and of course, if you guys have any comments, about any of these topics, please comment below, man. We want to hear your guys' thoughts upon this stuff. How about Billy Joe Saunders losing to Canelo Alvarez? It was a big boxing match that took place this past Saturday night. And, I was very disappointed. I'm watching that fight. I thought Saunders looked pretty good. Canelo looked good as well. It was a good fight. And I was really interested to see how the last couple rounds were going to play out. And I wanted to see what the judges' scorecards were going to look like, that night. And all of a sudden, Canelo hits him with a nice shot, and messes him up, messes up his eye. And it seemed to be a pretty serious injury, right? It's a quadruped fracture onto the orbital. And I don't want to be one to question a fighter's heart and this and that, but this guy Saunders was talking a lot of stuff how he would go out in his shield, and it was just kind of weird. He sat down in the stool, and all of a sudden he didn't answer the bell, or he didn't answer the bell, and I was very dissatisfied to see that fight end like that. But Canelo has some nasty power, and he keeps things moving. And the boxing scene is very weird in my opinion. I'm still a big boxing fan. I was originally a boxing fan before mixed martial arts. Quite honestly, which is kind of weird to say that now, being that I'm such a diehard MMA fan, for a long time now. But, I was a big boxing fan as a young kid, and the boxing scene is just, it's interesting, every time. I'm sure the judges' scorecards would have been very interesting, even if that fight would have went 12 rounds. Also, we got a big grappling bout about to take place. We got Gordon Ryan taking on Shinya Aoki, a legend in the game. I'm interested to see how this takes place. It's, of course, one FC is going to have this thing taking place. Gordon Ryan, if you guys aren't familiar with Gordon Ryan, which I'm sure a lot of you guys are, he's known to be the best, I would say the best Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner in the world right now. Definitely no-gi. He's the best Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu competitor and over there in the no-gi scene. He's not that fond of using the gi and whatnot, but this is a guy you guys definitely want to take note on. He's been talking about coming over to the MMA scene for quite some time. If you guys want to see or hear an excellent podcast over there in the Joe Rogan show, he was just on, about a week ago or so, and it was an excellent listen. This guy has some real skills. He comes from the Danaher Death Squad. He's a black belt under Danaher and Gary Tonin. And this guy's only 25 years old, and he's already taken over the jiu-jitsu game. I really want to see him come over to the MMA world and see what this guy brings to the table. Gordon Ryan, a guy, I assume maybe he would fight in the light heavyweight division or possibly the middleweight division. I don't know exactly what he's going to do as far as cutting weight and whatnot. But this guy is an extremely decorated no-gi jiu-jitsu perennial champion, this guy, man. So, something just to keep an eye on. And if you guys are looking for, something else to watch besides just MMA, this is a fight that I would put on the calendar. Of course, I know you guys know the deal with Shinya Aoki, a nasty submission artist in the MMA world for years. But I think Ryan will probably handle him pretty easily if you ask me. But I hope eventually this guy makes the come over, man. I'm telling you guys, keep an eye on him. All right, so UFC Vegas 26 was quite the chaotic card here. Was not a good one for me. Was not a good one for the majority of all you guys from what I've seen and from the people I've spoke with on Instagram and whatnot. Things played out, very strange. And we'll start at the bottom. We'll work our way up. This guy Harris pulls off the Anaconda choke. I told you he has nasty submissions. Once again, showing that he is a true threat with the submission game, and this is a guy to keep an eye on. Jun Young Park gets the majority decision over Tafon and Chukwi. This was one of my first plays. I did have 2 plays in the card. I kept it simple. I kept them small. I wasn't really too fond of this card, man. Nothing was really sticking out to me. I thought Nchukwi would have got the better of the stand-up. I was very impressed from what I've seen from him there. But, he needs to work on his takedown defense and his overall game. And Jun Young Park looked good in that fight. We had some weird things happen. We had the low blow. Had a point taken away, and it was a little bit of a strange fight. Mike Trezano takes out Ludovic Klein. Some people were a little bit annoyed about that. I thought that Trezano did enough to win that fight. He was the aggressor. I thought he deserved to win that fight. I know some people were upset about that. Klein was a decent favorite there going into that fight, but big shout out to Trezano. He's been on the show. He's an awesome guy, and it looks like he's sharpening up his game with the time that he's had off. Phil Hawes takes out Kyle Dawkins. This was my other play here. I thought that we were going to cruise into a victory here. Kyle Dawkins looked very good. He wobbled Phil Hawes early in the fight. I thought the longer this fight went on, that Kyle Dawkins would have had the better cardio. Phil Hawes would have gassed out like we always see from him. All of a sudden, Phil Hawes, his cardio looks better than ever. The time that he's put over there in Thailand with his striking definitely has been paying dues. You saw the striking looking very good, and that was the best version of Phil Hawes that we've ever seen. So that's something to keep an eye on. I was not expecting that version of Phil. Yeah, in the next fight, Gregor Gillespie. You talk about heart. How about Gregor? Fighting adversity in the beginning of the fight in the first round. Showing that he does definitely have holes in his striking and that he will be exploited there against a lot of guys in this division. I expect to see him knocked out moving forward in the next 3-4 fights. He will be knocked out again. There's just too many gaping holes in his striking defense. But his wrestling, his cardio, and his tenacity is almost unmatched. I was very impressed the way that he broke Diego Ferreira there in the second round. And, that's why I did pick him to win that fight. He had that wrestling and that cardio in his back pocket. And although I thought it was a dangerous line, as you saw why in the first round, being Ferreira, being a very dangerous fighter as well, Gillespie showed to have some real heart there. And big shout out to Gregor Gillespie. Marcos Rogério de Lima wins in one of the most boring fights I've seen in a long time. Just sat in and was in half guard and just sat there on top of Murray's screen for 15 minutes. Neil Magny pulls the upset on Jeff Neal. Neil Magny, when he shows up, man, that's what he could do, man. He could stifle these types of guys, and I wasn't shocked there at all. Alex Morono takes out Donald Cowboy Cerrone. I think we all thought that's how that fight was going to go, either that way or the other which was either, Cerrone was going to settle in and start to take over in the later rounds if, he settled in, or like I was saying, there was a good chance that Cerrone was going to take some damage early in the fight, get smashed up a little bit and get finished, which we've seen him do a lot. Then the main event, Marina Rodriguez takes out the Karate Hottie. Marina Rodriguez has some nasty Muay Thai. This is a girl to keep an eye on moving forward. And, the Karate Hottie is a very game opponent. And, she hung in there. But Rodriguez is no joke. So keep an eye on Marina moving forward. All right. So that wraps up UFC Vegas 26. And now we move on to this upcoming weekend's card. I know you guys are excited for this one. Let's get right into it. UFC 262. UFC 262 taking place in Houston, Texas. Got the crowd back. And obviously, from the last event that we had a full crowd there in Jacksonville, I think a lot of us agreed that it was much missed, and it really made the event a lot more exciting, maybe even a little bit more so than some of us thought. I was excited to have the crowd back, but I even appreciated it a little bit more when we actually got to experience that. So, in the first fight, I'm really excited for this. You guys know I'm a big fan of Christos Giagos. I would consider him to be, I wouldn't say a friend, but, out of all the different UFC fighters that I've came in contact with and that I've kept in touch with, that I've had on the show, I've had him on the show twice, him being of Greek descent as well, a Greek American. This is a guy that I really root for and I really do like. And I think that he has a lot of ability. You take a look at any of his losses, it's usually against, top talent. And there's been some tough decisions on his resume as well. Some fights that kind of didn't go his way that probably should have. Being some of these fights over in Russia, he's fighting these Russian guys. Now he's taking on Sean Seriano. Sean Seriano steps in on short notice. Seriano is a guy that fought in the UFC years ago. He's a guy that is he's a big training partner of Michael Chandler here. So not so much of a surprise that he steps in here, being that Chandler's in the main event. You know how the game works sometimes. But Seriano is deserving. He's on a 3-fight win streak. He's a well-rounded fighter. Like I said, coming off three victories here in a row. 2 of those 3 are knockouts. Took out Nawad Lahat. A lot of you guys are familiar with him, the Israeli fighter. But this is going to be a little bit different in my opinion. His last 3 fights are going to be a little bit different than, this guy Christos Giagos, who's really grooving right now, coming off a big win over Muniz, where he dominated with the wrestling. Before that, he did lose to Jurkar Klose, tough fighter. And then before that, he took out Damir Hasnovic and Mizuto Hiroto. He's 31. He's cruising right into his prime. I know that he's getting some of the best training that he's had in his career. He's feeling better than he's ever had. This was back in March. This was, I believe, the last episode I did of MMA Live Discussion. This was the Instagram version, or maybe second to last version, or second to last interview I did. I will get that going again eventually. But like I said, I've had Christos on the show twice, and I know that he's ready to go right here. I'm telling you guys right now. But again, Sean Seriano getting in, very good training with Michael Chandler. He's a very well-rounded opponent, but I'm going to give my boy Giagos the edge in the wrestling exchanges. And the cardio, as far as the cardio goes, he's been preparing for a big fight here against a very, very tough fighter in Joel Alvarez. Remember, that was the fight that was initially supposed to happen, and Alvarez is a very dangerous opponent. In fact, I believe a much tougher test than Seriano. I think Giagos can hold his own on the feet. I really edge Giagos everywhere this fight goes. So as long as he doesn't make any mistakes in there, I think that this is his fight right here. I will be rooting for him big time, of course. Like I said, these guys are virtually identical, only a half-inch reach advantage for Giagos here. I mean, these guys are very, very similar as far as the specs go. I would maybe say Giagos has a little bit of a bigger frame. And, real quick, just to run you through what my boy's been doing as of recently. You go back to 2016, taking out Karen Darbidian, 3 fights in a row. He loses to Shamil Nakayev. This was a split decision robbery over an ACB in Moscow against a Russian fighter. That should have been a victory. One of the more entertaining fighters that you'll ever watch if you want to watch a good fight. Wins again. Then he loses to Charles Oliveira, the guy that's fighting here for the belt, one of the top fighters in the game. Strings off 2 more victories, and then he lost to Jurkar. Wasn't the most impressive fight. He's going to bounce back from that. or he did bounce back from that. Dominates Carlton Muniz. Took that fight on short notice, remember. So don't put Giagos' cardio under the magnifying glass too much if you're just watching that last fight where he looked a little tired in there. Took that fight on short notice and still pushed the pace. I think he handles business here. The live line right now, 235. I'm not necessarily crazy about that line. He's my boy. I keep it real with you guys. It's a little high, but I think Giagos gets the job done. So if you want to just try to sneak some money in your pocket, maybe you do something with it. Giagos, in my opinion, is the better fighter there. And Giagos is my pick. And I hope he comes out with the Greek flag. Maybe I've been giving him a hard time for years, even before I ever had him on the show. Obviously, we saw the first Greek-born fighter win in the UFC not too long ago, and Andreas Michailidis. Maybe we start to see Greece represented a little bit more. Giagos, bring out that flag, man, and wear the blue and black trunks. All right, and the next fight. This is a good fight here. Tucker Lutz taking on Kevin Aguilar. This is a solid matchup. Both these guys like to stand and bang it out. Both of them have solid power in their hands. Kevin Aguilar, even though he lost 3 fights in a row, this is a former LFA champion. This is a guy that's looked good on Dana White's Contender Series. He's a very well-rounded fighter, but for the most part likes to keep it standing and throwing heavy leather here. Tucker Lutz is similar in that fashion, man. He'll stand on the feet and he'll rough you up there too. Has good power. This is another guy that came from Dana White's Contender Series show, and excuse me here. I was actually quite impressed with Tucker on the show, man. This was a good fight here. Looked to be very well rounded, and I would say impressed. I like his overall game. I liked his stand up. He's a very confident fighter. From when you break down the fight tape on him and in all his fights, man, he goes out there and he looks to dominate. Kevin Aguilar, on the other hand, like I said, lost 3 in a row to Dan Ige, lost to Chookagian and Charles Rosa. The Rosa fight was a little bit disappointing in my opinion. He did not look that good in that fight. So he really needs to change some things up and try to bounce back here. Otherwise, that's 4 losses in a row. I think that we will see him have a departure if he loses this fight. And quite honestly, I think that Lutz is going to win this fight. I think that Lutz will just be a little bit more crisp in there. I think he'll be a little bit more polished up right now at 26 years old. I think that his confidence is high. I just liked what I've seen from him as of recently a little bit more than Kevin. Kevin does leave himself out there at times. He'll look good at certain times in his fight, and then all of a sudden, maybe he drops his hands a little bit, he gets cracked. He has some mental lapses in his fights and kind of drops the ball, at times, So, there's been a couple times he's gone in there. People are expecting him to handle business, and he just hasn't. You look at his other victories, took out Enrique Barzola, the Peruvian fighter, took out Rick Glenn. And even in some of those victories were a little bit closer than some of us liked, if you had money on him. So I just think that Tucker is a guy, the Top Gun, Lutz, I think he's a guy that has shown to be right now to have a little bit more potential. He's on the up and up. And, Kevin Aguilar, though, a guy that can throw heat, can knock anybody out. If he cracks you with a hook, he will put you out. He can hurt you. But I'm not going to so much bank on that. And you see him, getting it in over here with Lando, funky Lando Vannata over there at Jackson's, and, getting it in with some of the best of them. So it's a good fight. Keep an eye on this fight. And, of course, we will be talking about Lando here in a minute as well. Lando Vannata fighting on this card. Oh, excuse me, guys. Let me break down the line for you. It's basically a pick'em fight too, by the way. It's basically a pick'em fight, with Aguilar being the very, very slight dog. So Lutz, very, very slight favorite. Basically a pick'em fight. So pick your poison, and you're gonna see a lot of that on this fight card. A lot of close lines, which I like because I don't want to hear no one talking about you're picking favorites, this and that. I like when we just have straight pick'em fights, and then we'll see who's picking the right fights and whatnot, or. People want to put the teller under the fire. They want to put me under the magnifying glass. So we'll get to the next fight. Gina Mazzani taking on Priscilla Cachoeira. Priscilla coming off a big, big victory where she knocked out Shayna Dobson. It was good to see her get a victory like that after just being dragged through the mud in her last three fights. Losing to Luana Carolina, Molly McCann, and of course, the Valentina Shevchenko fight, which is one of the more brutal fights that we've seen, where she just got absolutely beat down. So she finally got that big victory. You saw how emotional she was in that fight, if you guys remember. She was in there, she was crying, and just imagine all the hard work that she put in, and to finally get her first victory like that, you have to be excited for her there. Now she's fighting Gina Mazzani. Gina Mazzani's been putting it together. She looked really good in her last fight, but let's not forget who she was fighting. She was fighting Rachel Ostovich, who is a girl that's really made a name for herself with her looks more so than her fighting ability. Yeah, she's flexible. She has some jiu-jitsu and whatnot, but we'll see what she's about now over in the BKFC scene, which Bare Knuckle FC did sign her, along with some other big names in the women's MMA world. Gina looked good in that fight. Made a couple mistakes here and there. If you remember when Ostovich was flattened out and somehow reversed her with her legs, that was not the best look for Gina. But Gina did look really good. You guys know that Gina's, the girlfriend or the fiance or the wife of Tim Elliott, UFC fighter, very close with James Krause and all that. She's always getting top of the line training. She's 32 years old right now. She's hitting her prime. I understand why she is the favorite here. Minus 200 though. And let me pull up the live line right here. Gina Mazzani is right now the money's still coming in on her, minus 225. I wouldn't feel necessarily extremely confident in her in this spot. In a women's flyweight bout like this, Priscilla coming off that big knockout victory. I do think Gina's the better overall fighter. I think she could use her grappling, mixing in with her striking, just and be the better overall fighter here. But Priscilla, 32 years old as well, in her prime. She has an inch height advantage, whatever that's going to mean. It's not going to mean much. She's going to have a 3.5 reach disadvantage. I do think Gina's the better fighter here. I'm just not necessarily crazy about Gina in that spot with where the line's at. Let's not forget, Gina's dropped the ball, a couple times here. Lost to Julia Avila, got finished early in that fight. Does Priscilla come out, throw some heavy leather, and get a stoppage there? Lost to Macy Chase on, due to punches. Not a lot of big victories on Gina Mazzani's name. I believe Gina originally was from Alaska, and she's a tough girl, man. And cool. I'm always rooting for that whole crowd. I got nothing but love and respect for Krause, Elliott, and all them. So hopefully Mazzani comes through, but the line is a little high. All right. Hope you guys are enjoying these predictions here. I'm enjoying a nice coffee. I'm enjoying myself spewing out these fighter predictions. We got Jamie Pickett taking on Jordan Wright, the Beverly Hills Ninja, who's coming off a nasty knockout loss to Joaquin Buckley. You guys know that was an official play of mine. Stylistically, I knew Buckley was going to steamroll him there, which is that very aggressive pressuring style against Jordan Wright, who has that very patient karate style. I just thought that was a bad matchup for Wright there. Jamie Pickett has a crazy reach for the division, 80-inch reach. But you know what? Wright has a nice reach for himself, 77. He's a big boy for the division as well. Not a lot of people realize that. Very light on his feet, good footwork. The hands will be down. He's going to be looking for spinning attacks and whatnot. Hands will be down. Jamie will have opportunities to crack Jordan Wright here. And, Jamie Pickett, coming off that loss against Tafon and Shukwi. We talked about him earlier. But before that, did finally get his victory on Dana White's Contender Series. He lost his first two opportunities, but did look good in that final outing against Jonathan Patti, the tough Hawaiian fighter. I don't necessarily know how good I feel about Jamie Pickett in this spot. He's 11-5. He's kind of a guy that was just, he seems to be like one of those types of guys that's just trying to get into the UFC. I don't think he's really the type of fighter that would be hanging around too long, to be quite honest here. He definitely has the ability to take out a guy like Jordan Wright, because Jordan Wright's on that same status, in my opinion. He's just a guy, I don't know if he's UFC caliber. Has had that one UFC victory, so he's 1-1. And, that was a nice victory that he did get against Ike Villanueva, where he was teeing off with the spinning attacks, and he looked very good in that fight. Actually surprised a lot of us. If you guys remember, he surprised us in that fight. So Going into this fight, both these guys coming off losses. It's a very, very close fight. I'm going to say, hey, look at Jordan Wright with the pose right there. I'm going to say that Jordan Wright, man, I've been back and forth on this one here. I want to say that Jordan Wright's extremely motivated after that loss, and he gets things going here. And this is a guy that has a high fighter IQ. This is a guy that's a real martial artist. I hope maybe he changes some things up and can come in here and get the victory. Jamie Pickett hasn't necessarily really impressed me too much. Besides that one Pati fight, you look good there. But, it looks like the Ninja's winning here, and I'm going to take him to win this upcoming weekend. But it's an extremely close fight. Wouldn't be surprised if the Ninja keeps his hands low once again and gets that chin rocked. But another thing to keep in consideration, even when he was getting cracked up in that fight, his chin was kind of holding up, if you remember. Because he took some shots that a lot of guys would have crumbled earlier. So Wright was, standing against the fence. He was staggered. This is Jamie Pickett here, working Pati, where he looked really good in that fight. Jamie, likes to use his boxing a lot. He's more of a striking-based fighter. I expect this fight to take place on the feet. I expect these guys to throw down on the feet. And, maybe Wright could just be a little bit more unorthodox and score some points here and win a decision. Maybe he catches, Jamie with something. Maybe Jamie catches him with something. It's a pick'em line. It's a close fight. It's one that you want to tune into. At least I believe so. All right. Andrea, KGB Lee taking on Antonina Shevchenko. Where do I start with this one? Antonina Shevchenko all of a sudden looked like a completely different fighter in her last fight against Lucy Pudileva. Lucy being the Czech fighter, I believe. A good striker. And Shevchenko was a girl that looked so green with her grappling, which I was so surprised to see because I was in on her a couple times going into some of her last fights. I really thought that her grappling was going to come around because I'm so impressed with her sister's overall game and Valentina Shevchenko that I thought this was going to rub off on her quicker than it did. And I was starting to give up. I was starting to throw the towel in on her. The way that she was taken down in some of her fights so easily and just, couldn't keep the fight standing. We know her striking's nasty. Her Muay Thai is very nasty there. But, we saw some real development in her ground game in her last fight. And so much so that I'm going to bounce right back on this train. I think that her ground game wasn't just capable, it was impressive. She was very impressive there. It really helped her get the victory with her ground game. And, you mix that with her striking. I'm going to take her over here against Andrea. Andrea is a girl that drops the ball constantly. This is a girl that was very hyped up at one point in time. She eats a lot of punches to the face. She's a girl that's constantly in close fights. She's always going to these close split decision type of fights. And you see her here with Tony Kelly, a tough UFC fighter there. And I do think Andrea KGB is a very solid fighter for the division, but this is a girl that people were hyping up to be a potential champion and whatnot. I was a big believer in her at one point in time. But like I said, constantly dropping the ball. Loses to Joanne Calderwood, a fight that a lot of people thought she won. Loses to Lauren Murphy, another close fight. I think that was a fight a lot of people thought she won. And then loses to Roxanne Modafferi. Not a good look. I like Antonina Shevchenko here to win this fight. She looks like she's really developing her game. The frames are pretty much the same. Andrea Lee's going to have a 1.5 inch reach advantage. I don't expect that to be too much of a factor in this fight. I think that Shevchenko will work the striking there. And if this fight does to take place in the feet, I think Shevchenko will edge out the decision there. She could hurt Lee with her Muay Thai clinch, with her knees, her elbows. She's very diverse on the feet. Unless Andrea Lee's going to try to just all of a sudden take down Antonina, and Antonina takes a step back to how she used to look and can't get up, that's the situation you got to watch out for. We've seen Shevchenko in situations like that against Chookagian. Chookagian absolutely Khabib'd her. She straight up Khabib'd her. Took her down, ragdolled her. Modafferi was getting takedowns at will. And excuse me, actually, the last fight, she looked good against Pudileva as well. But no, the last fight where she really impressed me, excuse me, guys, was the Ariane Lipski fight. The Ariane Lipski fight is where she was really working the ground and pound and really showing some wrinkles in her game. So excuse me there. So I'm taking Shevchenko. We'll take a look at the live line here. Right now we got Shevchenko right around a minus 125. So a lot of money coming in on Andrea Lee, which I think was reasonable, being that Shevchenko opened up as such a big favorite at one point in time, a minus 200. That's ridiculous to me. The line seems more accurate here, but I like Shevchenko to win the fight, and it should be a good one. And even though Andrea Lee's coming off a bunch of losses, let's not underestimate her as still a solid fighter in the division. Mike Grundy taking on groovy Lando Vannata. I think I called him funky earlier. Groovy, funky. Call him either one of those. He's very unorthodox on his feet. Has some great moments on the feet, some great flashes from him in his career where he's done some real fun stuff, some groovy stuff. One of the real Jackson Wink, or they want to call it Jackson's MMA Acoma here, but one of the Jackson products, one of the OGs from over there. This is a guy coming off a loss against Bobby Green, didn't look that good in that fight in my opinion. Took out Yancy Medeiros. Marcos Mariano got the submission there. That was against a guy that I think Anderson Silva just helped get inside the UFC. Wasn't really a UFC caliber fighter. Just double check that that's the guy I'm thinking of real quick. I don't want to give you guys any false information. Yeah, that was the fight. So this guy wasn't even a UFC caliber opponent, but he got the victory there. Check out Yancy, tough fighter. Other than that, he drops the ball quite often. He's had some close fights, some draws that he's left on the table between Green and Frivola. Looked good in the beginning of those fights. Not really the most reliable fighter. You guys remember the Tony Ferguson fight where he came in, undefeated. Looked very good in the beginning of that fight. Looked like he was going to pull the upset off, but then ended up getting finished. Did take that fight on short notice. Still big props to him. Then he took out John McDessie with the wheel kick. He was so hyped up at that point in time, but ever since then, just really hasn't lived up to his potential. Lost to Mark Diakese. That wasn't a good look. Mike Grundy, on the other hand, this is a guy fighting out of England that has very high caliber wrestling, which you don't normally see from that part of the world. Even though things have changed, you see guys from all around the world with different types of skills these days. But Mike Grundy is a guy extremely tough, has power in his hands. Take a look at his last loss. It's against Movsar Evlivov, who is a guy that, in my opinion, could be a future champion. I'm extremely high on him, so no shame in that fight. He looked good in the beginning of that fight. I like Mike Grundy here. I think Mike Grundy is the better fighter, and I think he could use his wrestling. I think he could hold his own on the feet. Just needs to close the distance. Don't let Vannata play, a little tricky striking type of game where he could try to style and score points. Close the distance, use the wrestling, throw heavy body shots, push him up against the cage, take the decision, win the fight there. This line, the line is pretty much a pick'em. And, Grundy, even though he's the shorter opponent by 2 inches, will have a 1 inch reach. Does have some long arms for his frame. And I like Grundy here. I do like Grundy. Like I said, this guy, he's a hard-nosed guy. This guy comes right across the cage, gets right in your face, will shove his big old forehead here, right against your chin. He'll rip you down to the mat. And this guy, he's a good fighter. I've been impressed with him. And, really, put me on notice. Hasn't had a lot. He's only had 2 UFC fights, but put me on notice with that Nad Niramani fight. Remember, Nad Niramani was a guy that was hyped up pretty big at one point in time, went out there, finished him. Again, showing he does have power in his hands as well. But it's the wrestling. It's the wrestling where he's really impressive as far as I'm concerned. And he's 34, I believe, and he needs to get this victory and start pushing things forward with his career if he wants to make some noise. And there's funky Lando, groovy Lando over there with Jacksons and them. Kevin Aguilar over here, the Taz Mexican Devil sitting over here, and that's the groovy crew. So Lando looking to be in good shape, got the abs popping out. Could be a good fight. Let's see how things go. All right, we got Cachoeira Souza taking on André Muniz. It's a solid fight here. This could be a little bit of the passing of the guard. One skilled Brazilian fighter to another skilled Brazilian fighter. One legend to a guy that's trying to carve out his name in the game. Muniz 20-4 compared to Cachoeira's 26-9. So Muniz has some good pro experience himself. His jiu-jitsu is nasty. You watch him in his last fight where he's taken on Bartosz Fabinski. What did he pull off at him again? He got the armbar on him. I think he was threatening with the triangle as well at one point in time, but ended up getting the armbar if I remember correctly. But again, the transitions were lightning fast. The submission attempts were lightning fast. Has really long legs. 6'1", has those lanky long legs that can wrap around you. The striking's coming around. Took out Antonio Arroyo, a guy that's a talented striker. Took him out in that fight. Before that, took out Taylor Johnson. Got the rear naked choke there. Taylor Johnson, a guy that's in the Bellator scene now, is a very tough wrestler, a very skilled fighter. And André got that victory there, got the contract where that was a big victory for him. That was a big win. That guy Taylor Johnson's a tough fighter. And André continues to show that he can go in there and get subs left and right. Does he sub Cachoeira? I don't know about that. Cachoeira is 41 years old. I wouldn't be shocked. Looks like Cachoeira is, he's dropping the ball. From what I saw from him in that last fight against Kevin Holland, it was very suspect. He had a mental lapse. He froze there. And to get finished in that manner was not a good look. Cachoeira still has some good power in his hands. He could strike, but he's 41 years old. I'm definitely going to go with the new blood here. I like Andre Muniz. He needs to sharpen up his striking a little bit more, but he's going to have a 6-inch reach advantage here. I like his jiu-jitsu skills as well, so it's not like Cachoeira can go exploit him there. And Cachoeira's been having a tough time. I mean, even though he lost a split decision to Jan Blachowicz, John Blachowicz, however you want to say it, tomato. So, that's not necessarily a bad look, going to a split decision with the champion there. But the Holland fight was not a good look. I don't like how he's 41, creeping up on 42. And then you have Muniz, a guy that's creeping up to his prime that's really shown a lot of potential, in my opinion. So, that's why I am going to go with Andre Muniz. Lightning fast subs. I don't know if he's necessarily going to pull the sub off on Cachoeira. That would be a big feather in his cap. I just think that his overall game, his youth, his cardio and whatnot could help him get the victory here. And we'll pull up the live line. The live line right now, we got André. It's a pick'em. It's a flat-out pick'em. Another pick'em fight. And I'm going with the young gun. I'm taking the youth here. I like André to win the fight. Keep an eye on the sub, and that'd be a big, big feather in André's cap. And that would be a way to really make a name for himself as one of the top Brazilian fighters in the game right now. All right, this next fight. Another fight where we got one of our boys fighting here, Matt Schnell, a guy we've had on the show, a guy that I'm very fond of, a really cool dude. Went to the same middle school as this guy, Matt Schnell. Didn't even know it till I had him on the show, on MMA Live Discussion. I kid you not. How weird is that? This is a guy you guys know from MTV, that MTV's whatever it was, Caged. This is a guy that he's looked really, really good in his last fight. He was pumping out the jab in a very nice way. I mean, the jab was crisp. His boxing has been really coming around. He's well-rounded. He has all the tools, to deliver a victory for you inside the octagon. Lost to Alexandre Pantoja before that. He got hurt there on the feet. Pantoja is a very, very dangerous fighter, a very underrated fighter. Before that, he takes out Jordan Espinosa, Luis Smoka, and took out Naoki Inoue in a split decision, the Japanese fighter. And, Luis Smoka and Espinosa, there are no walks in the park there. And he went out there, he submitted both them, talking about his well-rounded game. He can strike with you. He can submit you. Trains with some of the best of them. They have American Top Team here, but, we've talked. He's mostly doing his training over in Texas, I believe. But he bounces around a little bit, and he gets it in with some of the, the best training in the game. Taking on Rogério Bontorin, who is a very tough fighter, brings the energy. This guy goes in there to knock you out. Has submission games as well. Has good jiu-jitsu. Coming off a loss against Kai Kara-France, that was a fight that, he looked good in the beginning of that fight. Almost looked like he was about to finish Kai Kara, was putting the heat on him. Ended up getting caught here, and then once he got wobbled, that was pretty much the end of it. But he brings the fight. You watch all his fights, especially in the UFC. All the way dating back to, I'm going to pull this back for you real quick, since the Contender Series against Gustavo Gabriel. All of his fights have been exciting. Took out Magomed Bibulatov. After that, took out Julian Paiva. That was a big victory there. You know, Paiva's been handling business. The fight was stopped a little bit prematurely due to that cut, if you guys remember. But still, Bontorin was, you know, he hurt him early and split him open. Lost to Ray Borg. Ray Borg is a very talented fighter. Don't sleep on this guy, Rogério. This guy is a very capable fighter. He's going to be in Schnell's face. This is going to be a dog fight. I'm telling you guys right now. I like Schnell's 5.5-inch reach. I really like it here. I like the height advantage he has. I really want to see my boy Schnell pumping the jab, and I want to see him keeping that head moving. He's got to keep that head movement up. I don't want Bontorin, you know, hitting him with the big hook and hurting him there, like we saw in the Pantoja fight. I don't want to see that, because if something like that doesn't happen, I think that Schnell really controls this fight. And the longer the fight goes on, I think it favors Schnell. And that's why I'm on my boy Schnelly here. I think he pulls the victory. And again, big shout out to Schnell. If you want to see an interview with him, you know, an in-depth personal interview, you know, it's here. It's on the channel. And we take a look at the live line. He's right around a -155. And I think that's more than reasonable. I think Schnell is a solid fighter that should handle business here. But Bontorin, he's a threat as well. So for those of you that are targeting some value, maybe some of you guys are onto that. I think my boy Schnelly gets it done though. And you know, again, big shout out to Matt Schnell. I know he's big into the collectible cards and whatnot too. He's been posting on his Instagram a lot of this type of stuff. So if you guys got any Matt Schnell cards, let him know. Maybe he's looking for some of those special edition cards. Keep an eye on that. But Schnell is a really cool dude, former Legacy champion, and I'm rooting for him big time. So yeah, the pick is definitely Matt Schnell there. And keep an eye on Matt as he works his way through the ranks and looks to eventually fight for the belt. You know, I would like to see him throw some big overhand rights like this and maybe, you know, hurt Bontorin. We've seen that chin tested. Let's see Schnell get a finish. That'd be big for him. Shane Burgos taking on Edson Barboza. Big time fight here. Shane Burgos, a guy that was really, really hyped up at one point in time until Kadar sat him down. He was looking good in the beginning of that fight. He was winning the beginning of that fight. But, you know, did drop his hands and got clipped by Kadar. And speaking of dropping hands, you know, that's something that Burgos has done throughout his career a lot. He's gotten away with it a lot. I mean, I'm telling you, in all these fights, his hands are low constantly. But he gets away with it. He has quick hands. He can make you pay. And but he's got to be careful here because Edson Barboza is an absolute sniper. Obviously, we've seen some nasty knockouts from Barboza. We've seen, you know, knees to the head. We've seen spinning wheel kicks. We've seen the boxing look good, the leg kicks. I mean, he's going to go out there and he's going to look to buzzsaw Shane Burgos. Shane Burgos, only 30 years old, a little bit more in his prime. But, you know, I think that Burgos' chin is a little bit more questionable to me than Barboza's, even though Barboza's been through some wars. I think I more so favor that Barboza might get the knockout here. That's how I'm feeling about this. I think Burgos needs to mix in some wrestling and some cage control, you know, pushing Barboza up against the cage and whatnot. In this fight, I don't know if Burgos should just sit there and try to make this a straight striking match. Pretty much identical with the frames and whatnot. Barboza coming off that victory against Makwan Americani. That was an official play of mine. Put some money in my pocket. I do believe he was robbed in that Dan Ige fight. That was an official play of mine as well. And I'm not just saying that because I had money on him. A lot of you guys agreed. A lot of people thought Barboza won that fight. A little disappointed there. That was his featherweight debut. I thought he won the Paul Felder fight too, man. So, you know, we're talking about possibly 3 fights in a row. It should be 4 of his last 5. Barboza, one of the nastiest strikers in the game. What else? I mean, I just think that you need to keep an eye out in this fight for a potential knockout. Either way, Shane Burgos throws heat too, but I think Barboza more so. We might see something nice from him if Burgos keeps those hands low. You know, Josh Emmett really looked good against Shane Burgos. Came in as a dog. I made some money on that spot there too. Shane Burgos, though, very talented fighter. I think he a Tiger Schulman product. Those nasty calf kicks. This should be an entertaining fight here. But, you know, I am taking my boy Barboza, one of the nastiest strikers that we've ever seen bless the octagon. A guy that is such a professional, always comes in game and ready to go. I think that, you know, Edson Barboza is the way to go, in my opinion. And big fan of Barboza. It's one of my favorite Brazilian fighters in the game. Just an overall cool dude that's been grinding through the game for quite some time. And the live line as of right now is we got a little bit of action coming in on Barboza. On Burgos. A little bit of action coming in on Burgos. The slight favorite at minus 130 with the return on Barboza at plus 110. I think I like Barboza straight up. So, I mean, anything around plus 110 is fine as far as I'm concerned. And Barboza is my pick. And, bearing that he's 35, maybe we see Barboza start to slow down. I haven't seen it, so I'm not gonna expect it. I'm not gonna expect him to start to slow down right now. I haven't seen any signs of it. Katlyn Chookagian taking on Viviane Araujo. This is a solid fight here in the flyweight division. One of the more underrated divisions. People sleep on this division over in the women's side. Viviane has been looking very good. 2 victories in a row. Really beat down Roxanne Modafferi. Really showed these fighters what the recipe is to go out there and take out Roxanne. Stuff those takedowns and beat her up on the feet. A lot of girls have trouble doing that. It seems easier, or it's easier to say that than to actually do it. Of course, I don't want to make light of that, but we've seen Roxanne Modafferi go out there and stifle girls like Antonina Shevchenko. How about the big upset that she had over name slipping my mind right now, but the big mouth girl that was going to be the youngest champion of all time. Comment below for me, boys. You guys know what I'm talking about. Anyway, the Dana White's Contender Series product that's extremely young and has a lot of potential. Macy Barber. And, obviously she was injured there, but still, Viviane is a girl that's been coming in, handling business, looked great in that last fight, took out Montana De La Rosa, really beat her up there too. Like, beat her up bad, bloodied her up. Lost to Jessica Ai. That was the one fight, did not look that good for her. I think that she's learned from that. Knocked out Talita Bernardo, the jiu-jitsu fighter. Took out Alexis Davis. This is a fight I expect to stay on the feet. Katlyn Chookagian is going to be on the feet. She's going to be yelling with those loud tennis roars. I was going to try to imitate it, but I'm not even going to do it for you guys. Let's not do that, because I'll see all you guys in the comment section hating. There's always a couple of you haters. I know you guys. I love you haters, though. You guys always tune in and you listen, because you guys, I always see those couple little dislikes over here on the video, but much love to you guys anyway. But Katlyn Chookagian will be howling like a tennis fighter. Katlyn Chookagian is a very well-rounded fighter too. She's been working on her ground game. I think this fight's going to play out closely. I do. I think this fight has all the makings of a fight that's standing on the feet and they're going tit for tat. You got to like the height advantage if you think that carries much weight. I mean, a nice 5-inch height advantage, but Viviane's right there with her with the reach, 68-inch reach. And I just like what I've seen from Viviane. She's looked very, very good. She's very physically strong for the division. Has a little bit more pop in her punches, in my opinion, than Chookagian's. Chookagian's very active, and she's looking good for the judges' scorecards with her activity and her yelling. But I think that Araujo is just, she has some nice power in her hands, and she's really got things going right now for her. And that's why I'm going to pick her to win the fight. Take a look at the live line, where Viviane is a slight dog here, plus 115. I like her to win this fight, though. And, Chookagian can easily come out here and impress once again, though. I would not be surprised. All right, we hit the co-main event of the card. El Cucuy, Tony Ferguson taking on Beneil, Benny Boy Dariush. Beneil Dariush, one of the more underrated fighters in the game, in my opinion. This guy is a silky smooth grappler, a silky smooth striker, an unorthodox striker, underrated striker, can knock you out. We saw him in his last fight. What was it against? Oh, no, it wasn't his last fight. Excuse me. The fight before against Scott Holtzman really hurt him there with the spinning back fist. Took out Jerkar close in a war. They were brawling out for a couple minutes there. He gets the better of him, gets tagged. Hurts close, though. Just constantly gets his hand raised. Coming off a big win against Diego Ferreira in a split decision fight. Ferreira is a tough test. And now he's taking on Tony El Cucuy Ferguson, who has lost 2 fights in a row. And before those 2 losses, just could not lose a fight. Just continued to win and win and win. For all you Tony Ferguson fans, I know we're a little bit worried right now because, he was winning for such a long period of time. He gets, brutalized the way he did in that Justin Gaethje fight, where I still thought he looked good in the beginning of that fight, but got brutalized really bad. And then he goes out there and gets dominated by Charles Oliveira, absolutely dominated with the wrestling. But, let's not, let me pull some up here. Yeah, this is Tony Ferguson here on bottom getting armbarred by Charles Oliveira. I know it doesn't look that bad right there, but he had that arm fully hyperextended. It was a nasty armbar. Tony refuses to tap. He's just built from a different cloth. Great cardio. He's so well-rounded, unorthodox. Gonna have a 4-inch reach advantage here. I think that let me just say this. I think this fight has the makings to be on paper, to be one of the most exciting fights we've ever seen. Beneil delivers as well. These guys are going to go at it. They're so unorthodox. I think this is going to be a war. I don't know if this fight goes to a decision. I think we potentially see a stoppage here, one way or another, just because I think things are going to get crazy. But at the same time, these guys are so durable, so it's hard to say. I'm really pulling for Tony here. Tony has underrated striking. I know Justin Gaethje pieced him up with his more crisp technique, but Tony had his moments too. Tony will go in there. He'll throw some fake sand in your face. He'll come up. He'll hit you with a spinning attack. Has like I talked about his reach. He has a crazy reach. He'll paw his jab out there too. He'll tag you up. I really want to pull for Tony Ferguson here. I really want to pick him to win this fight. And that's why I'm going to pick him. I'm going to pick my boy El Cachoeira here. I think that he's super motivated. All these UFC fighters that brush shoulders with him all talk about this guy is on another level with his work ethic and his game, his cardio, the conditioning that he puts in, the training that he puts in. I think he's extremely motivated, and I think that a 37 for him, it might be the equivalent of a 33 for a lot of other guys. This guy's built from a different cloth, so I think that he's still right there. The two guys he lost to are two of the top guys in the division. Charles Oliveira, potentially the lightweight champion here within a few days. So I like Tony here. I think that Tony can get this fight done. I think it's going to be just chaos, and I think that Tony thrives in chaos. I think he's due for a victory. Those 2 losses aren't going to shy me away from picking a guy that's won so many times in a row before that. He's 25-5, grew up in the UFC, has a good wrestling pedigree, can strike. But again, I'll give you guys a fair warning. Beneil Dariush is an extremely polished product. Can strike, can submit you. I wouldn't be surprised if he pulls the submission off on Tony Ferguson, even though Tony's well-versed there as well. I wouldn't be surprised, though. Dariush has very high-level jiu-jitsu. He can catch Tony with something. He can hurt him, bloody him up, and we might see the fight start to go downward for Tony like we saw in the Gaethje fight. That's possible. But I think this is going to be a very high-paced fight from the very beginning. It's only a 3-round fight, but it's going to be a very high-paced fight. Tony Ferguson's going to be on the gas, and I like my boy Tony here. He is the dog. It's right around plus 125. Tony's now up to a plus 140, 145. Money coming in on Dariush. And I understand it, but I'm rolling with my boy Tony. I'm rolling with El Cachoeira. I know we got some Cachoeira supporters out there, so, let's get some love for El Cachoeira here. Hit it up in the comment section, man. Where my Cachoeira fans at? Big fan of this guy, which is funny because I despised him on The Ultimate Fighter, and he was talking about people's kids and this and that. He couldn't handle his alcohol. But this guy's grown on me in such a crazy way. I like characters in the fight game. And Tony Ferguson is definitely that. And gotta admire a guy like him. And I'm picking my boy Cachoeira, and hopefully we won't see this upcoming Saturday. That's going to take us to the main event, boys. I hope you guys have appreciated and enjoyed this breakdown video. Shout out to everybody that's just been rolling with me right through this video. I don't know. Some of you guys might be in your car just, driving, listen to this, as a straight podcast, not so much as a visual show, that's how I do my stuff. You know what I mean? I got the podcast rolling all day. I'm constantly driving around the town for work and whatnot. That's what I do. So I'm always listening, so I can relate to you guys, and I appreciate everyone just listening. If you guys are watching this too at the house or whatnot, shout out to you guys as well. Please hit that like button, man. It helps me out a lot. Please subscribe if you guys haven't already. This show is going to continuously be brought to you guys, man, for forever, man, for years to come. I have a lot of things that I'm working on though behind the scenes that you guys will see take place over the next year or so, hopefully soon. Like I told you guys, a new studio. I have a lot of new ideas that will be coming, and you'll get a lot more content at these arenas and shows coming up. They will be coming up, so just stay patient with me. I appreciate you guys. Catch me on Instagram, MMA Fortune Teller _. All that stuff, man. Twitter, the MMA Teller. I've been on Twitter more, and I got the tweets going. Get me over there, and shout me out, man. Do all that stuff, man. I appreciate you guys. Please help me grow the channel. And if you guys are interested in working with me for my official plays, if you're interested in my packages, reach out to me. You could also get a hold of me on my email, mmafortuneteller@gmail.com. I think that's it. I have it below. But let's get to this main event, because it is, without a doubt, one of the most exciting fights that we've had matched up in a long time. Michael Iron Chandler taking on Charles Du Bronx Oliveira. I'm a big fan of both of these guys. Two of my favorite fighters in the game right now. You guys know I've been really, really high on Charles Oliveira for a long time. The submission kingpin. I've been on record for over the last 2 years or whatnot. I've been saying Charles Oliveira is the greatest MMA submission artist of all time. People have been hating on me for saying that. I don't care. I stick to it. He's been still going in there pulling off subs. Should have had a sub on Tony Ferguson, but like I said, Tony is just a different type of animal. That should have been an armbar. Should have been another sub. 98% of the guys in the division tap out to that. So he'll get you to that situation where you're about to tap out. Submits Kevin Lee. Knocks out Jared Gordon, tough fighter. Knocks out Nick Lentz. Submits David Tamar with the Anaconda choke. Just such a dangerous fighter, man. Coming into this fight with the 5-inch reach advantage, he's going to be the more rangy fighter. Michael Chandler does know how to cut the cage off, though. Chandler, we saw it in the Hooker fight. He was very patient, took his time, waited for the right opportunity to close that distance, connected with the hook on Hooker, and that was an official play of mine. I've been tooting Michael Chandler's horn for a long time, since the Bellator days. I've been a big fan of his, way even before the first Eddie Alvarez fight. I've been keeping an eye on this fight. I knew he was an undefeated prospect with a solid wrestling pedigree, and I thought this guy had all the potential in the world. You take a look at some of his losses. There's some injuries in there. There's some weird ones. The Will Brooks fights. But Chandler, without a doubt, is as capable as it gets. I would love to see him in a matchup with Conor McGregor one day. We'll see how that takes place. But the winner of this fight will be a champion. The winner of this probably will fight, the winner of Conor and Dustin. So keep that in mind. A lot of exciting things coming up with these guys, with these fights here in the division, and my favorite division in the game, the lightweight division. The best division. Just there's more people walking on planet Earth around this weight than any other division, and you're gonna see two peak level fighters throwing down. Michael Chandler. I'll say this much, right? We've seen Charles Oliveira. I want to run the tape back real quick, or run his resume back. We've seen him broke a few times, right? We've seen him. Paul Felder broke him in a fight. We've seen guys, finish him. Max Holloway, Anthony Pettis Lamas. I think he was a much different fighter. This is 5 years ago. How old is he right now? He is 31. I mean, this is what he was in his mid-20s. He had some growing pains, but this guy he's really, really stuck with it. He's been groomed in the octagon, and he's going out there just finishing every single fighter he gets matched up with, basically, besides Tony, which again shows you how tough Tony is, right? We just talked about that, but the Muay Thai is nasty. The striking of Oliveira is really came around. The submission game is second to none. And then you got a guy in Michael Chandler that has extreme power in his hands. Maybe Chandler could break him, if he closes the distance off. Maybe it's just an absolute brawl. Maybe he rocks him to the body, connects him with an overhand. Maybe he hurts Oliveira and gets a finish there. Maybe we see a little bit of that old Oliveira. I just don't expect that, though, man. I expect Charles Oliveira to come in here, have that size advantage, have that submission and jiu-jitsu advantage. I expect him to be able to strike with Chandler. If anything, I expect his striking to be more technical and more rangy, where Chandler will be more headhunting. But not to underestimate his striking, man. He's been working with one of the best striking coaches in the game, Henry Hooft, for years. It is technical in its own right. He's setting up his strikes in a different way. It looks a little bit more chaotic. He's just going for those power hooks, but he's setting that up with his footwork and whatnot. He can easily go in there and absolutely knock out Charles Oliveira. Would not be surprised. But overall here, I see more advantages for Charles Oliveira. I like the 5-inch reach advantage. I like the height advantage. I hope he uses some leg kicks later on in the fight. After things slow down a little bit, I like the grappling advantage for Charles. Even if Chandler has that wrestling edge and he's going in for takedowns, he's a stronger fighter. Oliveira will be too crafty and tricky. He'll swap around. He'll take your back. And who's to say that Oliveira doesn't even get a takedown and slam Chandler down from what we just saw against Tony Ferguson? Nobody's done that to Tony the way that Charles did. I mean, getting takedowns, mounting him, and just literally doing it with ease. Charles has looked to be on a completely different level, and that's why I am going to pick Charles Oliveira to be the new lightweight champion of the world. I've been saying this for years now. I've been saying Charles Oliveira will be the next lightweight champion, and I think that this Saturday we will finally see that. Luckily for me, I've been riding the wave with him for some time now, and I've been cashing in tickets on him, getting him at underdog odds too. Grabbed him at dog odds against Tony Ferguson. Let's see what else we got here. Grabbed him at dog odds there. Grabbed him early against Kevin Lee. And yeah, he was a dog. Believe it or not, he was a dog against Kevin Lee. Grabbed him at dog odds there. I was all over that. Those days, those days are long gone now. Charles Oliveira is going to be, in my opinion, the next champion. And I think after he goes out there and does something impressive like he will to Michael Chandler, I could see people just respecting him like no other. People are going to be like, all right, that's enough. This is the guy. And even when Poirier or McGregor will be a big test, but people are going to start to see what this guy Oliveira is about. And that's why I'm on Charles Oliveira. He is my pick to win this fight. I hope you guys enjoyed this breakdown here. UFC 262 taking place in Houston, Texas. Please like this video, man. What else to say? This is going to be an awesome card. By the time we get to the main card, the crowd's going to be going nuts. How about the weigh-ins? We'll have people at the weigh-ins getting crunk. The fighters will feed off that energy. We'll see a little scuffles at the weigh-ins like we did last time. I expect that. And I'm excited, man. I'm excited. All right, guys. You guys all have an amazing rest of your week. Shout out to all you guys for the love and support. I wish you guys nothing but the best. Signing out, The Teller.
The MMA fortune teller.
The teller.